Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Avi Loeb, who you'll know from a few years ago, is that Harvard scientist who suggested that Uma, that big giant object that entered our solar system and did a U-turn around the sun and then basically shot back into space the same way it came in. He suggested that object might have been alien intelligence, something extraterrestrial, maybe looking for intelligent life in other solar systems. And he's also a scientist who's behind the Galileo Project, which is a group of scientists that are trying to find evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. And anyway, he wrote an opinion column in The Hill that appeared today, the 27th of December 2021, and he wants somebody, the government or non-governmental entities that have satellites in space to provide him and other scientists with any images that they have of UFOs. Anyway, I'll read a little bit of this. The headline states, "We need scientific analysis of satellite data on UAP." Earlier this year, the United States military and intelligence community issued a report on unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, also called UFOs. Before the report's release, former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe stated, quote, "We are talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for." End quote. The attention-grabbing part of this statement is the reference to, quote, satellite imagery, end quote. I and the hundreds of scientists engaged in studying UAP have never seen any publicly released data on this. We would be extremely interested in analyzing any data on objects that enter the Earth's atmosphere and do not follow ballistic orbits like meteors, but no such data is currently available to open scientific analysis. Of course, Ratcliffe's quote is an insufficient basis for substantive scientific inquiry, but unclassified data assembled by non-governmental satellites could be made available to open scientific analysis. Progress in our understanding of the related satellite imagery data may also stem from the new office established recently by the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2022. And just a little break here, just so you know, Biden did sign that, so now it's official that office will be established. Congress, it was passed in the House, the Senate, and now Biden has signed that. Okay, continuing with this piece here. The office, to be created by mid-2022, will have the authority to start a coordinated effort of reporting and responding to UAPs and significantly improve data sharing between agencies on UAP sightings. This new office will be administered jointly between the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence, and it will empower military and civilian personnel as well as the intelligence community to report incidents and information involving UAP. If the new office will determine that the objects in the satellite imagery data are so unusual that they cannot be human-made and hence are not a matter of national security, then it would make sense to subject the data to scientific analysis. A natural or an extraterrestrial origin will be of international interest and benefit humanity as a whole and enrich our shared scientific knowledge. Now, he gets into something here which I've been talking about a lot, and he's being nice about it. I've not been nice about it. It's with regard to, he doesn't say the words, but it's SETI, and, you know, the sending out radio signals to try to find proof of extraterrestrials, which I think is ridiculous. Something that the late Stanton Friedman, the nuclear physicist who studied UFOs pretty much his whole life, stated that he used to call it wasn't the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. To Stanton Friedman, it was the silly excuse for investigating. That's what he called it. But anyway, continuing here. He says protocols for a possible contact with extraterrestrial intelligence were mostly inspired in the past by the possibility of detecting radio signals from planets around distant stars. Given that the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, is 4.4 light years away, such signals would require a decade or more for a round-trip conversation. As a result, they do not bear consequences to our immediate future. But a different type of contact could deliver prompt implications. It concerns physical objects from another civilization that are already here, waiting to be noticed like a package in our mailbox. The arriving hardware need not be brainless, but could possess artificial intelligence, AI, seeking information about the habitable planets around the sun. An encounter of this type implies instant contact without a significant delay in communication time. The potential for an immediate engagement changes the response protocol relative a delayed radio signal. Then he goes on about there's no international agreement right now on how humanity should engage extraterrestrials or any kind of objects that are of extraterrestrial origin. And he says any engagement could have implications for the future of humanity and should not be left to the spontaneous whims of a small team of researchers. He continues, we should weigh the risks and benefits that will result from different engagements. The decision tree on how to proceed will have branches that depend on the object's properties and behavior. Since it is difficult to forecast these unknowns in advance, decisions will have to be reached in real time. Deciphering the intent of an intelligent extraterrestrial equipment may resemble the challenge of breaking the code of an encryption device. We might need to rely on our AI systems in figuring out the intent of extraterrestrial AI systems. But anyway, he goes on, and I will leave the link for this. It's very interesting. This is a guy who's unafraid. He's unafraid. He actually believes something's going on, and he thinks it should be studied. He's one of the few scientists out there who has the guts to want to look into this and do so publicly. And a lot of scientists don't have those guts. They don't have those guts. They want to just turn their back to the objects that are obviously floating around out there that people are seeing all the time. Not just regular civilians, but our military. People in our military see these all the time. And there's things in satellites. There's satellite imagery. Could you imagine all the stuff that the government-operated satellites are picking up? I mean, sometimes some of these things end up on the internet. We don't know. It's some things from NASA sometimes, and sometimes they'll try to hide it. They'll try to take it off or try to block out a UFO that's seen in some of these things, in some of these images, because they want to try to keep it secret. They don't want people asking questions for whatever reason, multiple reasons that we've talked about multiple times, but. And also there's non-governmental agencies out there that have satellites floating around. And if there's anything that they have that they could provide, they should be providing it. And because here is a group of scientists that want to look at these images. They want to try to figure out what's going on. You know, I mean, they could say, hey, you know, if you had a bunch of people looking at these things, a bunch of scientists, okay, all the imagery that the government and non-governmental agencies have captured with satellites, just satellites alone, forget about the pictures and cell phone pictures and everything else, right? Or, you know, that have been taken over the years. But if you had all the images of different anomalies, they could make they could say that they will probably say that after they're done looking at this, that there's only one conclusion. There's only one conclusion, that these are objects that aren't manufactured on Earth. They're obviously some intelligence that's beyond what we have. I mean, if people would just sit down and look at it, you know, you can't, nobody's faking that stuff. I mean, if the government has stuff, they should be sharing it with these scientists. And this is a cry from him to say, hey, let's see this stuff. Now, of course, the government might not, they probably won't. They'll keep it hidden for whatever reason. The Pentagon's really, you know, again, I give credit to the Pentagon for finally starting to come clean here on this subject after keeping it secret for so many decades. Now they're giving us this, you know, slow, you know, a little bit of a spoonful of the truth, you know, every couple of weeks maybe, you know, or every couple years. I don't know how you want to look at it, whatever way you want to look at it, but they did give us that report this past summer. I mean, what's next? They admitted that these images that are captured by different military personnel, in their cameras, in their jets, were from ships, were they can't explain them. So they've been forthcoming, more forthcoming than they've been in a long time, than ever actually. So they are starting to come clean. But how about coming clean with these scientists? Just give them what you got. Unless they know something that the scientists don't know. Maybe the scientists that are working secretly with the government, because there has to be. There's no doubt about that. And private industry, there's definitely some big corporations out there like Lockheed Martin. There's no doubt in my mind that there's personnel that are with some private corporations and from the Pentagon, scientists from both sides, from both of those institutions that know things that the rest of the general public does not know. They have access to proof that there are things out there that cannot be explained, and they actually have proof that there's extraterrestrials coming here. There's no doubt in my mind that the military, our government, there's a secret group established decades ago under Truman and Eisenhower that's been in operation for decades, and there's other companies involved. There's no question about it. There would have to be. There's no doubt in my mind that this has been a subject of high seriousness with government officials, certain government officials, for a very long time. But again, how about it's time to let the general public know about this. So how about the government release these images, anything they got? Let the world scientists look at this, and then they could come up with a conclusion on what we're seeing, on what's going on in around our planet. And I'm sure that the consensus would most certainly be that this is not human made. It can't be. And all the rumors and all the innuendo and all the discussion about extraterrestrial visitation will finally come to some sort of a consensus. There'd be a conclusion. Okay, it must be. It has to be. Initially, the United States government's first investigation, which I just talked about recently, Project Sign, concluded, and they came up a report, Project Sign, concluded that it had to be extraterrestrials behind these flying saucers back in the late 40s, when they first started noticing these things, when it first became a big issue. So it's obvious. It's obvious. You have to be a dumbbell not to see this at this point. There's no question. There's no question that it's all. Some of us already know. Like, some of us already know the answer to this. But for the rest of the world, they need to be told by officials, scientists. Of course, there's going to be some knuckleheads out there that are not going to believe it, no matter what's said. Right? We talk about that a lot on the podcast. There's going to be some religious fanatics that aren't going to accept it. There's going to be some fascists out there that won't like it because they'll, for lots of reasons. But yeah, we need to get over this hump. We need to the government, the Pentagon needs to provide this data to this scientist and other scientists so they could look at it. Not just the private organizations out there. They should be getting it from the government, that taxpayer money has been paying this money toward for all these years. And they're not sharing it with the people that are paying the money toward it. So it's time. We the people want the scientists to get that data, so they can look at it and give it and tell us what they think is going on here, and get a look at these objects and make a determination. That would be really nice. So anybody out there in the Pentagon that's hearing this, the taxpayers, I don't know what kind of agreement was agreed upon, back in 1948, 49, 50, whenever, but that's a long time. All those people who made that agreement, they're long gone. The people of today want this information public. They want it public.